Hello, YouTube. This is Josh and Jim, and we're going to do Josh and Jim things. So Jim said he wanted to kind of have the ins and outs on how to do some development, and we're just going to see what we want to do. So what was we're going to walk through, I assume no experience. We're going to ask him questions. We're going to kind of walk through how I would kind of solve the problem. Jim will kind of put it in his 2 cents, and we'll see if we get anywhere. What do you want to start off with?
You can come across different syntax issues, and having that vocabulary of the thought process could be a big game changer for a lot of people. So I was thinking we jump into some HTML, CSS, JavaScript, maybe some React, that sort of web app world, and then take something simple, so like an object or an instance or a variable, and then apply a function to it, and then have the internal thought process verbalized. So like if you have a house and you have a paint function and you have a color that you can have as a parameter, I'm guessing it'd be something like house.paint parentheses yellow. That would be something, a decent example for a lot of languages. So just looking forward to seeing how your particular stack handles that and the communication inside your brain as you're thinking through that while you're typing it.
Okay, sounds good. Do we want to do this in what? Do we want to do it in React? Everything must be React?
If you want to.
Okay. So I guess let's go ahead and share screen real quick. We have React. If we go to the kind of normal documentation, it'll say getting started. But before we do that, let's actually just open up a new deal and kind of demo out some. So what do we want to do with React, or how do we want to, like, we can kind of model anything. We can have a web page. We don't necessarily have to have a lot of web component to it. But what is kind of the task we want to solve today?
Okay. I'm taking a form, and then basically you could save it to any data type, JSON or flat file or whatever, and then import that into the backend side of things.
Okay. Do we want to make the form today, or something that we want to break it down into kind of like a user story or a task or whatnot and stuff, and we'll try and keep this not to go super long and stuff, but do you want to do a contact form and be able to, like, if we were to get the user's information, and then either at the point we could either make a API call or to save it somewhere, would that be good? Or even just log it out of to the console and everything, that'd be good, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we're going to do this in React, first thing we probably need some React. So if we come over to React and everything, there's our getting started kind of tutorials and what docs and everything. I think I forget the syntax. So there's a command here that says docs. There's probably a create React app. Okay, so React comes with that kind of a boilerplate thing that says you can create React app, and then there's probably a way to make it even fancier. If we can do it in TypeScript too.
So on one hand, React is just a library add-on for JavaScript. On the other hand, it's its own whole different.
Yes. Okay. The first thing we wanted to do was actually kind of go from a kind of a new perspective. So we're going to walk up from the basics and stuff. So so this is our notes. I'll save this right now. So I just have a folder on here. I'm going to say code, YouTube. So this is going to open up a new, code here. So we're going to open up a new deal. We can close this guy. Okay, so this is our YouTube deal. If I open up a new deal and then paste our notes, okay, so this is our notes. This is our scratch folder and stuff. If we wanted to go ahead and we wanted to make a new file, so we just said index HTML, and we wanted to put something in here. So I'm going to come, like every developer, say index HTML template. You could code it by hand and memorize it, or you could just say, okay, so I don't know who this is, but it says there's a thing here, and then we just say paste. Okay, so if I knew the location of this on my machine, I could go visit it and be able to see this and stuff. But I can do that, or if I want to serve it up like a like a web server would normally do, I need a web server. So since we're talking about React, we can go into npm. Npm is a package manager. You can run, you can install things, you can run things on the command line. But if we type in server, let's see what comes up. So there's a bunch of servers. If you know some of the different names that for like they do different things. So you can have Nginx, or you can do Happy, or you can do all kinds of different things. One simple server is this HTTP server. This will serve whatever you have in a directory and just kind of maybe give you kind of a URL, like a local host, to be able to see it.
I have something, since you're using Visual Studio,
yep,
or VS Code. I have an extension called Live Server, and you just click on the button in the blue bar at the bottom of VS Code, and it'll launch web browser for the file you're working on.
Let's see how that works and stuff. So live
server.
Live server.
Yep. Purple. Yep.
We're installing things. We have a virus. Okay. So now I come back. Now you said that there's a button. Okay, there's this go live button.
Yep. So you go to the file you were working on, so your index.html, and then at the bottom it'll say, go live. Go live. It should launch a new window.
And it put it on the other screen, but okay. So this is nice. So this puts it on a service. Do you know what server it's running underneath, or?
That's a good question. I'm looking through the doc right now.
So you asked about like the kind of the workflow and everything. One of the things that like those are the add-ons and extensions and editor things and stuff, tricks and stuff are nice, but sometimes they abstract out what's going on behind the scenes. And so it might be nice to know kind of how this is working. So this is definitely, I mean, this is very cool. I suppose we can play around with this a little bit and stuff. So you have your CSS. If we open up this link here, this link to CSS is going to error out because we don't have a CSS folder, or a file here. So if I go to refresh this, it says there's an error here that says it can't load CSS and it can't load GIF because it's trying to find that information.
I guess the one reason why I would use this little extension versus just loading the raw HTML file in the browser is that it live updates as soon as you save your file. And I've got my code editor set to save on loss of focus. So as soon as I click off of the active file, it'll save, and then the web page will update. So it's a way to live code HTML pages, which I think from what I've seen, React does that dynamically once you get into the framework side of things. But this is a nice little tool for doing that before you get to that level of code.
Yeah, and technically React doesn't kind of do that. The server does that. So the script that you're running behind it. So it'd be kind of the same thing as this little like local host server. It's when you save it, it's actually updating the URL or updating the page for you. So I mean, if we pasted another here and then I'd saved it, it's gonna update it here and stuff. So that makes sense. So this is an HTML file. So if we're starting off from scratch, we have just our normal HTML.
Can you increase your font size on that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Keep resolution.
There we go.
Okay. So if we just had an HTML file, can we format this? Is this a thing that we can? Oh, we got to configure a formatter. Let's do prettier. Hey, look at that. Okay, that's pretty. Okay, so if we wanted to, this is HTML. This is, we have something on here. Now, if we wanted to say, I'm going to do something silly, like if we put in a style tag, right? So if we put in a style tag, now we can just put in CSS. So if we wanted to say, we're gonna,
and that's different than inline CSS. That's actually an in-document CSS style sheet.
Yeah, I mean,
so this call later.
Nope, no call later. Just by having it on the page, it'll get loaded, and then it'll apply the styles. And so this is kind of technically called inline styles. But we'll show a different version of like inline styles kind of later on and stuff. But
I guess I'm used to just cramming in tweaks directly on like the p tag as a style tag or whatever.
Yep. So if I let's do that real quick. If I did a deal here and I wanted to do actually we'll
Style equals quote.
So if we do p for the p tag and then we say color and then we say red and then if we save this. So now we have our paragraph tags are going to be the font color is going to be red. Sometimes when I'm trying to find something on the page, you don't know the div or whatnot and everything and stuff, I like to put like background color. So I'm like, okay, like is this something that's completely different? So if I wanted to come in here, I can say style, and then I can say.
And it looks like that p tag formatted the whole page as a paragraph style.
Well, let's figure that out. Actually, that's a good way. So color, and then we can say blue. So we're going to say for this paragraph tag, we're going to it looks like this paragraph. If the text was the same and whatnot, we got lost in our markup and whatnot. We know that the style for all paragraphs is going to be red, but the style for this paragraph or this paragraph tag is going to be blue. So if we look on the page, one of them's blue, and then one of them's red. Now, so what this shows us is that a general style that's inside of our style tag is going to be not as important or the specificity as the one that's here that's on the style that's in line. So inline styles usually always override kind of the global styles. And I think if that's true, even if we put like important. So like important is usually not a good habit to run, but if you had if you were targeting something on the page and you really wanted it to override, then you could write important. So if I type this, okay, so now important, because it's important, it's overriding the specific style that's on the tag, even though that this is more specific. So what I mean by
you add important to the blue one, and then
it would do. Yep, it would do the same. It would kind of negate that whole thing.
Super important.
Yeah, super important. Yep. Okay, so now if I added this guy, so now it's probably going to go back to blue because this important overrides that important. So CSS specificity means, so like say I wanted to, if I take these importance off, another way to do this is if I. So if I have they're now both blue and red and whatnot and stuff. If I say body dot p, what does this do?
So I would think that would be any paragraph within a body tag.
Is that I think it's actually going to be the. So now you see we've lost our red. So maybe it's been so long since I've actually used. So I think it's actually, maybe it's this. So maybe it's okay, that's what it is. So now we're saying that a paragraph that's inside of a body tag.
Within your style tags, that is considered CSS.
This is CSS. Yep.
No, I'm saying up at the top, the style brackets, anything within those curlies is considered. Yeah, anything within the style tag.
These are the styles, and then this would be kind of considered the rule. So
up one, so line 7 through 11.
Yep.
Anything between those is going to be, it's going to interpret it as being a CSS.
Yep.
Okay. And then there's what's the word for it? There's designated tags, so like body, head, paragraph, or P, and then BR for break. Can you make your own tags, or does everything have to be a class?
Hey, great question. That's where I was going with this and stuff. So, so right now I have a rule on here that says body and then paragraph. So any paragraph that's inside of a body is going to be color red. If I move these two tags into a div, now it's a body div paragraph. So what happens there? Okay, well now the inline color applies because for the paragraph, but not the general rule, because this rule is specific to a body and then to a paragraph. So
just body paragraphs within the body, not. Can you do greater than div? Chain them on line 8.
You could, yep. But so basically, this is saying is that this paragraph has to be a direct child of body. So if you wanted to have, if we delete this, it's been so long since. Okay, so now if without the greater than sign, if we just put them with a space in between, this says any paragraph as long as it's underneath a body tag, that I want that to change. So the way we could do that, explain this is if we had a div. And then we save this. So now there's no change because I just made this. So if there's a paragraph inside of a div, the color is going to be red. So if I move that paragraph,
you're going to need to add a third line so we can keep track of this.
Oh, okay.
Third line of text, something different.
Or the same, so we can.
Or the same, yeah.
So, okay, so Sean made a change. Okay, I don't know who Sean is, but he's making a lot of changes. Okay, so I
was wondering, were you on line 8? If it could be body greater than div greater than p, and then if you did another layer inside that paragraph, it would ignore it.
Okay, so body greater than
div
greater than. Then we save this. So this is going to say that there must be a div as a direct dependent as a body, and so even kind of that's kind of cool. That kind of gives you a preview that there's a body div paragraph that's going to be written. So then you said, well, what if there's a div inside of a div that has that thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then I need to close my div, and then I need to. Oh, it's doing weird things. Then I format. I think we should have a format on save. Okay, so then I go here. Nothing happened. Why?
Because you're coloring it blue anyways.
Yeah, because we're coloring it blue anyway. So I put another one here and stuff, and so in the second one, this one is not being read because it's inside of a div. So it would have to go body div. So then if we looked at this and we removed these rules, and we just said if there's a paragraph underneath of a div, then even though it's nested, all three of these paragraph tags apply because there's a paragraph underneath of a div, but the last one, the paragraph is underneath of a body, so it doesn't apply. So that's so this is a rule. So now if we had let's do one more kind of example and stuff. So what's a different color than red or blue and black?
Green.
Okay. Green. Okay, so then if we save this, oh crap! Now my it's green. Why is that? Well, it's because you have two rules that are the same. As CSS gets interpreted, the last one in the file wins. So if you have a rule set and it's in a different file and you're like, why is that make a difference? Well, then order matters. And so if we have it reversed here and we save this, then it becomes red. If we want to have that kind of demonstrate that we have this as a specific deal, so if we can say it has to be a direct dependent, then I would imagine one of them would be red, and then because that applies for both scenarios and stuff. If we said that we had to have a body div paragraph is red, and then we put this one back up here, you should see two different colors, right? Body div paragraph. And is it this way? Okay, body div paragraph is green, and then if we move this, does the order matter now that we have this thing? Oh, still green and red. Okay, so body div paragraph. Of course, there's a body div and then a paragraph. So it's got to apply to. So there's a blue one and then there's a green one. So it says body div and paragraph. So there's a body div and then shouldn't the I'm looking at this is the rule for red. So if we swap this around, does it make a difference? I think the color on the left should be the same. Okay, so it is. So now because there are different selectors or different specificity, they're going, so it even says selector specificity, and it gives you, I don't know you probably could look this up and stuff, but it basically is probably how strong is it or what's it going to apply to and stuff. So the body div paragraph. So you have body div paragraph. That is going to be red. That's this guy. The div paragraph is going to be green. So there's a div paragraph. And so it doesn't matter which order you put this in because they're different selectors. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So the second one is green, and that's because of this rule. But what if we want to make one that we want to only have the color purple, but we want to have it. So we'll have this one, but we want to have it a class, and we want to say that this is purple. So if we just have this as purple, okay, so that was the overriding. Okay, so then we'll move this back up. So purple, and then it gets overridden by green. So everything's green right now. So green, red, blue, black. Okay, but we want purple to apply. Well, this is currently being overridden, but we want it to be a unique enough rule to apply a style when the class is purple, but we still like the idea that we're going to only target paragraphs under divs. So if we applied purple, this purple over here, this is a paragraph under a body, and it's not under a div. So we should only see one of these go to purple. And the way that we can do this is we can say div paragraph, put a space there, and then say dot. Dot means anything that is a class, and the class name was purple. So then we say save. So now, does it go to a deal? I would imagine that this would. Okay. So what this says, and this is actually helping us out, it actually says that there's got to be a div paragraph and then a element that has class purple because there's a space there. If we remove that space,
So is element a keyword that you can use?
Element is anything that has a tag. These are all elements. So it's an HTML element, a head element, a meta element. So element is anything with that kind of HTML.
And those are all reserved words that you have to know.
Yep, these are all reserved HTML words.
You can't make your own.
You can. We'll get to that.
Okay.
Usually a big key or an indicator is that all the HTML words are lowercase. If you see something with a capital, that's usually a custom component. But so now there's nothing purple on here because it's looking for a div with a paragraph with an element with a class name of purple underneath your paragraph. But we have it as the class name of purple on the paragraph tag. All you have to do is remove that space. Now it's going to say, I'm looking for a paragraph underneath of a div, but that paragraph itself, as you can see here, has a class of purple. So it's going to target the paragraph with class purple underneath of a div, which makes that one purple. But this is a paragraph with class purple, but it's underneath a body, so this one remains black.
So the big difference here is the space between the P and the dot purple.
Yep. So how do we figure this out?
Separate, then it's an element, or it's looking for a class. If they're together, then it's a sub.
Yep. So this is where CSS.
How would you call that?
What's that?
How do you process the vocabulary in that? Like,
so I mean, it would
article is what's coming to mind here, but I don't think that's right.
Well, I mean, so if you start talking about articles and everything, you're talking about how design on the page and everything would be laid out and everything. But this is
element and then particle.
Oh, I mean, they would both be elements, but this would be the parent. This is the child, and the child has a class.
Okay.
So you can have a child, or whatever, and stuff. And let's actually look at here. So it says selects all elements with both name 1 and name 2 set. It's a class attribute. So if they're smushed together, you can have two classes, and the element would have to have two classes on it. So then if we looked here, it says div comma p, which would mean that it's going to select all divs and all p's. So basically, you can have the same rule that applies to both divs and paragraphs. Say if you wanted to have both background colors or whatever. But if you remove the comma and there's still a space, it says that it selects all paragraph elements that are inside of a div element. So here's kind of all your lookups, and then this would say selects all p elements where the parent is a div, and then the p would be a child. Sometimes you'll see it as a node or child node and stuff. And then what if you wanted? Here's a good one. So this is where if you really knew all of these things, you could. I mean, this is where designers kick everybody's butt and make everybody mad. Okay, so if I save this, this is going to have two green. Sean made a change because there's two paragraphs inside of a div, right? But if I make this div paragraph, where we just notice over here, there's this rule here that says if you put a plus, it says that the paragraph must immediately follow the div. So if I come back over here and I change my rule to div, and then we say plus. Oh, wow. I thought that was going to work. Why didn't that work? So div and then plus P, it says selects the first element that is immediately placed after a div element. So div plus P. Oh, it's after, not inside of. So if you, it should apply it to, and it's applying to green. So it should apply this thing to green. It's because this rule is already here. So one was more.
Is it line 28 that it's changing the color of? Because that.
Yeah, it was until I deleted those lines, and so yeah. So the rule is for this one because it's saying I only want the P that's directly. So this is it's a sibling or directly after a div. So here's the div, here's the paragraph, here's the div, here's the paragraph. So it applies to both of these paragraphs. So that's why these two are green. If I undo the what I just had, it says that a body, a div, and a paragraph is red. So you'd have body, div, and paragraph, which would mean this one goes to red. So that one goes to red, and the last one is green because it's still a direct sibling of the div. So a lot of these you just have to kind of play with and just get scenarios. The nice thing about this would be there's probably like if you look up like let's see CSS properties. If you find your deal, there's probably like a selector thing. There's no selector. Okay, so usually if you type it into Google, you'll find if you click on these things. Okay, so if you find this example, you click on the link, it's going to find. So try it yourself. So then it tells you that there's a div, an H2 P, and then there's a P right here. So it says background yellow. So it was, even though there's two paragraphs or three paragraphs on the page, it's only going to apply the style to this paragraph because it's the only one that immediately follows a div. Now, if you took out that's still a child, so it wouldn't work or make a difference. So if you move this down to here, now the I will not be styled will actually be styled because we switched the order and it was right after the div. Fun stuff. Okay, let's actually go off of this because you can look these up and you can keep going on the styles. So now I want to create another file. It says style.css. Okay, so now I have the style CSS, and now I'm going to move this style block into the style CSS. So now these are inside this file, and now if I save this thing, all my styles go away except for my inline style. Now instead of having a style block, I can just have a style tag. And this actually, that's a React thing. You can't do that. You have to say style. Okay, and then in here you have to have source, right? Or is it? Is it ref? So it's got to be source. If you do source and then you say /style, so we're saying that it's in the same directory as the HTML file. I save this, and nothing happens. Is it? How do you do the freaking style tag? Style. This is how much I don't use style tags. Style link is probably how you have to do it. And so style link. Tag HTML. I knew as soon as I clicked on it, I was like, that's not going to work. Okay, so it's href. So it's kind of like an anchor tag. href. Okay. And it didn't work. Why did I name it right? CSS. Okay, so we can look at this by. Well, maybe. It's not even looking for my. This is where your server's hurting me because the server's only closing this, doing this file, isn't it? Is that right?
Possibly.
What was my originally? I had a source. We can't read. Okay, see how it says link instead of style? So I mean, because I named the file the same thing, it's not a style with an href. It's just you're just a link. So a style tag can't link to something else, but you can link a style tag.
Okay.
And are we still not getting it? So now it's getting to 400. So now it just says I don't know where styles are, even though it's right here in the same folder. So I'm going to guess that so maybe it's just because I need to do I need to like click this thing again? So if I change this to style. Is it because it's style or styles? Styles. Ugh.
Typo.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So there wasn't anything wrong with the server. Okay. So now it's defined.
Hey.
So now these styles that are in this file are now being served up. And we got to configure a formatter for here too. Nope, everything's prettier. Let's do prettier. Okay. So now we save this, and it's gonna have the same thing. Okay, so now we want to. What if we want to? Let's jump ahead and we'll do the first look at React, and then we'll wrap it up from there, and we'll be able to take off from on the next point. So if we go to create React app, React itself is a little library. Create React app will run and generate all the files you need to have like a local development environment, and we'll do npm, and you need Node and everything and stuff. But if you don't have Node installed or you don't have npm installed, and we want to be able to put React on the page with just doing HTML and CSS, just like this link command for the style sheet, we can then also include React. So the way you do that is a CDN, so content delivery network. It's just you're going to have your the file hosted somewhere, and then you ping it and stuff. It's the same way you'd put like jQuery on the page if you're following a guide. Okay, so now what's the difference here? So it's React 18, both are React DOM available, or the CDN. The versions are only meant for development. Okay, so one's for production and one's for development. I know that the development one will probably give you better feedback if something happens, like there's a better error output. So we'll put those on the page. So you just put those in the head. Really, you can actually put because they're script tags. These are script tags. You can put them anywhere you want. If you put them at the top.
Usually I've seen JavaScript script tags thrown at the very bottom.
I was just going to mention that. So why? Do you know why?
Is that so you at least get a little bit of page feedback loaded if these don't load?
Well, here, let's play. So if we say script tag, so if we're just going to do normal JavaScript and we say console.log, and then it says hi there, and we say save. So when I launch this and I come over to my console, it says hi there. So we want a little bit more descriptive deal. And so if we say instead of console.log, we say console.trace, does it give us a little bit better where we're at? It says hi there, and it says index HTML 9. So it actually tells you just where we are. And if we click on it, it'll actually open up the source tab and give us a little bit better insight of where it's at. So if I put another script tag, this is inside the head, but if we want to put it down at the bottom of the body or like below here and stuff, what happens here? So we have hi there, and if we have two traces, so one we see at line 9 and one is line 64. So what this shows us is that anything that's in the head gets loaded immediately, and then the one that's at the bottom of the file gets loaded after everything else has been loaded. So a lot of times when you have like heavy, SPA frameworks and whatnot, if this took a long time to load, it just would never render out the content on the page. Let's actually, can we do that? So there's a function here that says set timeout. So set timeout, and then we can give it a function. And that function is a shorthand kind of function. They call this an arrow function. That's going to look like a little parenthesis with a little arrow, and then we can point to whatever we want. So we can have our console log. So this is going to be a function that just points to console.trace, and then the other argument that we need to do for set timeout is a certain amount of time. So if we say 10,000 seconds, that's going to be, or 10,000 milliseconds, which is going to be how many seconds you wanted to wait. I'm actually surprised the Visual Studio is not helping us out with what the information is. But once we get into like TypeScript or the JavaScript, you can mouse over it and it'll tell you what this. Oh, here it goes. So set timeout is the handler, which is going to be a function, and then the timeout, which is the amount of seconds to run. And so I think what this will do is it's going to wait 10 seconds. I think that's right. Is that right? Is it going to wait 10 seconds and then do it, or is it going to? Yeah, it should wait 10 seconds and then do it. So okay. Oh, here we go. So now at the bottom here on the console, you'll see that if we refresh this again, even though that this is in the head, you only see the one logged out at the bottom, the 68, and then after a long time, then you see the one logged out at the very top. And so what that means is that you can delay this response. Now, say that this was a component that had, a lot of React components only have a div on the page, and you actually need to render the content into that page and everything. The apps will usually put their slowest scripts, the biggest content, at the bottom, so you can kind of render some static content, make it look like your app is really fast, and then have the content loaded in the background, and then it'll update the page when necessary. So a lot of times when the first page you see is something that's styled and it's very pretty, but it's all just HTML, and then the buttons may not may not be disabled or have a spinner, but they don't actually do anything until until the app comes back and can actually do anything with it. Okay, so that makes sense. Any questions there?
Yeah, so stuff you need right away that's really fast and local, put it at the top. Everything else, just shove at the bottom. Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do a thing. So we're going to put this over here, and we're going to have this in the deal. So now we have React. Did it do anything? Nope, didn't do anything. So now I need to have a tutorial.
Another quick question.
What's up?
So you've got two different script sources that you're pulling in. Mm-hmm. They both are hogging a script tag.
Yep.
Right? Element tag.
Mm-hmm.
Can those be shoved into a single, or do they have to be separate like that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think they would put it out there for you if you could, but I don't think so. Let's see if we have a. Okay, well let's make our own thing. Well, we're smart. We can do things. Okay, so a script tag can only either be a link to something, or it can contain things, but I don't think you can do both. So, and I think you can only contain two different things. If we wanted to put a React, well, actually, let's Google it, because it's a React CDN example. So just playing around and stuff. I mean, you can definitely do, but okay, so we did the exact same thing. They're just using the last version of React, and then they put a div on the page, because you need to have a div that your page is going to render, and of course they put it in the body. So let's actually just follow their kind of plan. So we'll let's put everything down here. We'll just paste that. Now we don't need 2 or 4 versions of React, so let's just delete these things, delete this guy. Okay. So then is it going to do the counter? Oh, it says, okay. So now we're going to do another script, because why not? And we will put that up here, and we'll paste this guy, and then we'll say format, and then save. Okay, so now we've come over here. It says hello React. Okay, so so let's like dive into what this is doing. So this is we're going to load in React, and then we're going to load in the React DOM. So those are two. That's kind of like one library split out into two different things. They do two different things, but we're going to think of them kind of as one thing. And then we say there's an element. So everything on the page is an element. And then we are going to say create an element, which is an H1. And then this must mean something. I don't know. Well, I don't know what it means. And then and then we're just going to say hello React. So it must somehow this is putting hello React onto the page. No, it's putting it into an element, and then you say React DOM.render and an element. So then it must go fetch the div. So it must find this guy, and then it puts it inside of this guy. So if we look at this, it puts, okay, so there's a div on the page that has ID, which is React app, and then it gets rendered in there. That's hello React. Okay. Well, that's interesting, but there's this weird syntax. This is like react.create React app. I think we could do a little bit better. So if we did React JSX CDN, so JSX is the kind of the HTML introducing JSX. Okay, so if we want to have something like this, that we can just kind of like put some HTML in there, but then also mix in some JavaScript. And we have
this a new kid on the block?
Well, I mean, this is what made React very popular. Is that so? React itself is the ability to, like, the way that React does it is if you have nested children, or if you kind of specify out how your app looks, and you change the state of it, React knows how to update your page very efficiently. So that's without going to the server, without it updates it. That's where you get the concept of single page or SPA, so single page applications. So if you change the state, it's going to update the page update the page efficiently and stuff. JSX is a way to write your application without using kind of this React.create element, kind of the procedural things that a lot of people think of, like jQuery and stuff. So we are going to, let's see if we can specify children with JSX. So if you had this syntax, does it show you how to do it? How do we do it? Okay, tip. It says we will explore rendering elements. So we recommend using the BABEL language definition. Does it show you how to do? Okay, so I must show you how to do it in the next section. So we'll click the next section. Where's the thing? Where's the thing? Oh, there's a code pin. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so there's a deal. There's an element, but it doesn't show you how to do. Oh, it says BABEL. So it says JavaScript, but then it says BABEL. So that's important to know. Let's see if it shows you where, because this is hiding a lot of things for you. I wonder, there's got to be an example on here that shows you how to do it. Okay, let's Google it. So Google React JSX BABEL TN. We're just going to pipe on all the things into the deal. So does this show us how to do it? Oh, there we go. So kind of. That's a little more complicated and stuff. So let's go React and BABEL CDN links gist. So somebody got mad and figured it out for us, but then it doesn't have an example. Come on, where's the example? Oh, here's the React. So alternatively, you can community projects such as HyperScript and HyperScript helpers. And then there's the online BABEL compiler. Okay, so this is a good example of what Babel is doing for you. It's so if you type in this function and you want to return a div and then hello, it actually goes out and it does a function that says react.create element div null hello world. So that looks a lot like the things we have on the left-hand side, but I kind of want to do this in our browser, like so we can figure that out and stuff. So, and it's kind of good that this is being a pain in the butt, because then we will get to see how awesome it is when you don't have to do this. Okay, so this get message. Okay, this is everything we need. Okay, so then we have a div on the page that has an ID. We already have a div on the page that has an ID. We have this standalone deal. And does it tell you that you need, maybe it doesn't. Okay, so we'll put this on the page. So we have React DOM, and then we put in this Babel deal. So we have language as JavaScript, but this says there's a script tag, but the type is going to be text/Babel. So what this does, and you can read up on their docs and everything, but when Babel reads it, it's going to look for a script tag that has a type of text/Babel, and then it's going to look inside of that script tag, and it's going to transpile, or it's going to convert everything that you've written into normal JavaScript. So if we say that our element, I think if we just copy this guy, so instead of this element is now this part, so it's just a function deal, and we save this, does that get us closer? No. Something errored. Element is not defined. We defined it, didn't we? Let's go back to our example over here. Did they do something different? So they're doing a element, constant element. So React DOM.render.
You have the right brackets. You have parens. Is that correct?
Equals. So their element is just this thing. Okay, that's probably a good one. So it says get message. They're calling it. Okay, that's so because this is a function, we now have to call the function. Okay, so if I save that, okay, so maybe it's we have to do const. Hey, hello world. Okay, so it just, we were trying to set it to a function, and it didn't know and stuff. So okay, so now we'll format this. So what happens if we go back and we just type this back into to JavaScript? Java. Does it still work? No. Why? Does it have an error? This is an issue, but it's not showing me what the issue is. We want. How do I show the issues? Show me the problem. This is showing me all the things, shouldn't it? Why do you not like it? Okay, without finding that issue, what it's doing is, so this isn't valid JavaScript, or the way we're writing it, or the shorthand syntax is not in a form of JavaScript that the browser understands. I think if I wrote this as a function, it might understand it, but because this is the shorthand syntax, this is not the browser kind of lags behind the current version of JavaScript. So to take advantage of the features that the current version of JavaScript has, we can use something like text/Babel. Babel will then convert it just like we saw into, if we saw in this example. Where's the thing? Where's the Babel compiler? Try it out. Okay, so when I type in something like "hello world," it then says, okay, it says "hello world." What's the problem, Mr. Deal? So anyway, so the Babel is transpiling it, and then we know that that React can take over and stuff. So this is if you're going to have our CDN links. Let's do the kind of the famous app example, and then we will probably wrap it up for today and stuff. So okay, this is "hello world." So now if you just render something right here. If I come in here and I put brackets here, so now we have a variable that points to a function, And this is kind of, they call this the arrow syntax. So it's an arrow function. So arrow functions behave a little bit different than normal functions. But if you always use arrow functions, you don't have to worry about what the differences are. Inside of a function, you need to return something. So if we say return and then we say hello world. Oh, we have to spell return correctly. Okay. So now there's no difference. So we have a variable that points to an arrow function. Because it's a function, we have to call it with the parentheses. Now we can say hello world. Now if we wanted to, maybe we want to pass in world as a string, so world. So we're going to put, in React terms, this would be considered props. And we can say there's going to be a message. Well, we call it a message. Okay, message is going to come in here. And if we want to make this if we just type in, message, no, that's not going to work. Okay. So what we need to do, and I knew that, but so we can take our string and change it to a templated string. So if you type in to Google templated JavaScript string, you put the backticks. You then replace this with something that looks like this guy. Now this will treat the variable as put the variable in place. You save it. Now it says hello world. Okay, so now we have a component. So it's a function that gets rendered onto the page, but we're kind of putting it in this kind of like syntax that's kind of procedural. Now this is the thing that kicks it off. So if we had element and we change this to say we'll say parent. So we're gonna give this a name as a parent, and we'll say that's the parent. So we say this. This goes now has a new thing. Okay, so now we can say const child. We'll make another component here. So another component. Maybe you'll see a pattern here that these are just functions. So every component or tag that you see on the screen in React terms is basically just a function. So then we can say child. If we just then went ahead and we wanted to say that the parent also has the child in it, we could then say we're going to return something, but we want to return something that looks like a kind of a nested structure. So we'll see if this. I don't know if this will work because this. So if I paste this inside of it, this is kind of shorthand syntax for like a div, but it's not going to put a div on the page. This is just kind of React knows how to do this because this is a string template, but you're inside of an HTML kind of div. You need to put this inside of some curly braces. So and then we need to probably format this guy. Okay, so what this is doing is it says this is a function that we're going to call. We're going to pass in the text. The text comes in as a message. We're going to render the message inside of the string, but we want to put the string inside the middle of a div. So we have to use curly braces to come back into kind of JavaScript world. So I see no errors. I think it's still working. Hello. Okay, so we know it's still rendering. So now if we want to have the child, then we can, as a sibling to this guy, we can say child. Now, I think this might work, but it's kind of silly. In fact, actually, no, it says child is unrecognized by the browser. Okay, because all lowercase tags are considered native elements of HTML, it doesn't know what child is. And if we look, we try and look in this, inspect this, we should see that inside this div has a hello world as our text, and then there's actually a tag that says child, and the browser's like, I don't know what child is. So to change this for React, we actually want to replace this to an uppercase C, and then reference it as a uppercase C. And now HTML knows that it's no longer a HTML reserved word, and it's going to now render out. So now there's no issues here, and it works. So now we probably want to be on its own line. So the cheater method of doing that is just put a break method, and when we save, now that's on its own line. So now there's some space there. Okay, so let's we'll go for one more thing, and then we'll wrap it up and stuff. So if we, instead of message, we wanted to pass in let's pass in 0. So we're going to have a number that's being passed in. This is the we'll say count. We want to put a button on the screen. We say button. Let's say button. Okay. And then if we wanted to have the button just have the count, if we passed in this thing, does that work? Oh, it says count. It's because we want to have we have to put it in the curly braces so that it knows that it needs to be interpreted. Okay, now it's a count. So now if we click on it, does anything happen? No, nothing happens. So what we could do is we can put a method on this that says on click. Give it a little method. Now we have to give it a kind of a function, something that looks like a function. And we kind of, this is the shorthand syntax. So you can either put your curly braces and do something inside your curly braces, or you can just type something here. So we'll say console.log and then say, button click. Okay, so we save this. Now we're looking at the console. If we click on this guy, it says button click. Now an important thing here is that if you take out this arrow, this will still work, but it says button click. I didn't have to click the button. Well, that's what that means is that when it was trying to render the page, it just said in the on click, there's just this function that says on click, or it just says button click. So it's just rendering out before you have to do anything. To make it wait, you have to give it this little arrow syntax, which means that it is a function, but we want to wait until it's clicked. If we save this, now you see nothing in the console, but once I click on it, it says button clicked. If we don't like it in this bracket syntax, we can move everything from here. We can say const, which is const is short for constant. So you have variables and you have constants, and you have you can have var, let, and const. Those kind of mean different things. But if you just like if you always use the arrow function, you'll be fine. If you always use constant, you'll most likely be fine. So if we say button click equals, and then that deal. So now we just have to take this name and put it into here. So now the page loads, and we click on this guy and button click. Any questions? That I'm going to show you the one last thing, which is really the last thing because we've been going for a while and stuff. But
so can you just do a plus equals?
Plus equals for what?
For the counter.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going. So if we want to, if we do a plus equals, that would we could increment it, whatever and stuff. But let's just let's do a plus equals and then 1. Like every time we, so the button click.
I didn't know if it had a shorthand where you didn't even need the number. If you could just do plus equals.
Well, plus equals is gonna, that kind of means something else and stuff. But if we put this inside of a deal here that says count plus would be kind of if you're going to increment it by 1.
Sure.
And then console.log, and then if we put it inside this bracket here, it'll kind of give you a default label because it's going to try and log out the object. And this is the same thing as saying count, but so it's going to be like the key is count, and then this will be whatever the variable is. You can shorten that just to say count instead of some curly brackets. So if I click on this, it says count 1 and count 2. So I must have clicked on it twice, but my button doesn't change. Well, that's kind of weird.
Updating.
Yeah. So why is that? Well, we need to have, this is where React has some state that it needs to update. So if we want to do that, we can say, this is where React has hooks. You can say, we'll define another variable here. If you look at the documentation that says give it an array, this will kind of make sense in just a second. But you'll say react.use state. And then we'll say count. So what that does is it says we're going to have a state variable that when it says useState, we're going to start it off as initial value as count. So then when you have this array, what this is basically says is that if you just did useState count, what that will look like is the same thing as if we did a useState and then we set it to an array, which is going to be the current count, and then a function that says set count or update count, and you can kind of name it as whatever the heck you want and stuff. So if we were to define it like this, you can React, or I guess JavaScript, allows you to do something a little bit shorthand, which is says if you put an array on the left hand side, it's going to take whatever comes back from this function, and it's going to put it as the first, like it's going to have a variable that says count that it points to the first thing that's in the array that comes back from that function, and a thing that comes that as a variable that says set count that points to the second thing that comes back from that function. And we can kind of go more in detail on that. So if we say format document, is that the correct thing? So let's look up useState. So it says. Maybe it's because I just didn't know I put a semicolon there. So what's the problem? So it says const count, and it says that the identifier count is already declared. Oh, it's because I tried to define a deal. So we can say current count, because naming is hard. Okay, so replace this guy. So this should render. It says might have more, so invalid hooks can only be called inside the body of a function component. So this isn't considered a valid function component. Okay, so a function component needs to have, it wants us to actually make this as instead of a, let's just make this a function. Then the parent, and so instead of an equal sign, we can just have the parentheses, and then we don't need this fat arrow syntax. We can just have this guy. Okay, does it like that? No. Why are we still complaining? Push. You might have some breaking rules. Okay. useState. And then, so this is the exact same thing we have here, this counter. Okay, let's take out the...
Does it want you to set it to 0 instead of having it a variable?
Well, let's just copy their thing and see. It might be a little bit of a... Yeah, it might be that part of it and stuff. So let's do that part real quick. So if I paste that guy, get rid of this guy... and then change the parent to counter.
Oh, they just use useState instead of calling it down the tree.
I don't know if it'll, because it probably will tell me it doesn't know what useState. Yeah, so the useState comes from React.useState. So that's why okay, so it says invalid hook. Hooks can only be called inside of a body of a function component. You might be breaking the rules. You might have more than one copy of React. That could be a thing. What if we look at is React on the object here? So if we put, this is getting the weeds, but if we do React, and then there might be window React. That might be the difference there. So this is kind of a window.react. No, still breaking the thing. So if we do, the first thing we can do is we can say cdn babel react hook under Babel standalone. And React isomorphic React DOM. This seems like it's going to be complicated, not what we want. It says window.react DOM equals undefined. So then React DOM is this guy. I don't know. Do we need that thing? No. And it doesn't give you an example. I assume that it would give you a example here. Okay, main concepts. And it says there's no thinking in hooks. Okay, hooks, introducing hooks. And then there's no, there's a hook thing. And then there's a thing, and then a thing.
And a count at the top.
Right, but so this is inside of a normal app, everything and stuff. So, we could kind of go down this path, and so what happens is it looks like it's trying to. There's a conflict with what you can't have more than one copy of React, because it's putting it into memory. So if you don't have state and you don't have things, it's easy to load it on CDNs. But this is where kind of have to deal with the syntax and everything and stuff, where this is where you might want something like a kind of a build pipeline and everything to kind of help out with this and stuff. So we have this example, and I kind of want to do a working solution before we in the session and stuff. So now we'll have you'll bear with me here, and we'll actually just run the fancy script that will kind of help us out. And maybe we'll see why the value is, instead of doing the npm scripts, instead of just doing like a little editor thing like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to do control tilde, open up our terminal. We can come back to, so we can say npm, or I guess React create TypeScript. We don't have to have TypeScript, but but it sometimes can be useful. So there's this command that says npx create React app, my app, and then by giving it a template of TypeScript, it'll make that. So inside of this, inside of our YouTube folder, we can say this. So what npx is you can think of it as like an npm executable. If you don't have create React app on your machine, it will go out and download that app. And then it'll immediately run it. And so it's going to pass in my app as a argument to the create React app. And then in the template is going to be just say it's going to create it with TypeScript.
And you were talking about using Yarn instead a couple days ago.
It says we no longer supported please remove the global, and then say, it says this is a weird, I guess that's nice that it tells you to goes somewhere else. Isn't that the same command that I just did? So npm or npx create React app, my app. So you are running create React app 5. Oh, it's because it's saying that I already have it installed on my machine. So we'll just follow instructions. It must have been already installed. So now we will do this. And so now it will, so now it's saying that need to install the following packages, which is create React app. So we type in Y, we hit enter. So it must have been an outdated package. So now so if we come back over here and we look at the docs here for the create React app. There you go. We just had it. Where did we go? Okay, wherever it was, you can use, so npx will here's the 3 commands. So npx will download create React app if it's not on your machine. If it's on your machine, it will go ahead and just run it. npm is the kind of, doesn't stand for node package manager, but that's kind of what everybody refers to it as. And the yarn is basically an implementation of npm, but it's actually made by Facebook. So React makes Facebook, or Facebook makes React. Facebook also made yarn. They have big package or big projects that have React and a whole bunch of dependencies, and they think that yarn does things a little faster. npm is kind of the de facto or the standard if you're not using a React, and if you are using React, then Yarn might be a benefit because of the way it resolves the dependencies. In my experience, that they both kind of do the same thing. Yarn can be a little bit faster, but anytime you use Yarn, you most likely can use npm and vice versa. So and what you'll see is that it created a folder with my app, and then there's a package JSON here, and then there's a package lock. When npm installs the packages, it looks for package JSON, and it looks through all this information, and it installs these dependencies, and then it creates a lock file, which is going to have more information about that, like where it found it and everything. But that's the npm version of the lock file. If you use Yarn, it'll create a Yarn lock file, which is just basically the same thing but for Yarn. Okay, so we ran this command. What did it get us? So, and it even is nice to tell us that it says you can do npm start, npm build. It includes test. We haven't even thought about test and everything. So let's actually follow its instructions. It says, in fact, I'll just copy and paste it. And so it says cd into the my app and then run start. The start command, you can find out what it does, but you can think of it as kind of the same thing as the go live, but it's kind of just the built-in script for the or the built-in like server for the React app. So now this is running. It's running on 3000, and we didn't have to think about it. It just kind of goes. So where does this live? So if we look at inside of our source folder, we're going to see an app.tsx. So this is going to be quite a bit different syntax, but this is kind of achieving the same thing as what we did inside of our instead of having a CDN link with React, we're going to import it. Instead of having a link tag that references CSS, we're going to have app CSS. So that's going to be a folder here that says, I guess it would be app CSS. So it'd be a CSS file here that gets imported into this component. So React is smart enough to be able to figure out how to bundle in the CSS and all those things. But then here's our function that we're familiar with and whatnot. And it's abstracted to have only this information here. And how this gets kicked off is if we look at, there's probably this index. So just like you have an index HTML, there's probably a index.js or index.ts. So because the X means that it's some flavor of React that has JSX. So the X means that it's going to have like the tags and stuff. So inside of this file, we're going to do the exact same thing as we did before. We're going to find the get element by ID that has the root. The root is just the ID that was on that div, and then we're going to render, and we're going to render our app. This means something. I don't know what it means. We can look it up later. The app is just in a different folder. It just happens to be this app. Where the div is if you look in the public folder, here's our index HTML that was generated for us, so we don't have to generate it. But here's our div on the page. So instead of us generating the HTML and then figuring out how to link things or whatever, it's kind of scaffolded us out a index file, and it has the ID here. In our source, which is where all of our code goes, and there's an index, just like there's an index HTML, there's an index TSX. That is the thing that kicks everything off, and that's the same for all apps. Is they're going to have one file that kicks everything off, and this is we're going to call this root.render. So this is we're going to render our app into that root, and then that lives over here. Okay, so enough talking for now. So let's actually go ahead and delete the inside of this, and let's do the thing we were trying to do. Okay, so now if I save this, now there's a blank page. If I come in here and say hi mom, now hi mom shows up because it's in between two divs. Okay, so now we want to actually have that same thing that we were doing before. Let's see if we can break it. So if we have our const, so we're going to make a variable. We're going to have an array kind of syntax. We're going to have our count. We're going to have set count. And then this is going to come from react.use use state. And if we can have it just as use state, or we can have it, we can give it a default state and have it and start off at 0. So now instead of the div with hi mom, let's actually render out the state, which is going to be our count format. Save this. Okay, now it renders out 0. So now we have our use state and our count. We're already ahead of where we were. So we generated this project. It's serving up the project for us. It served up our HTML. It knows how to bundle in CSS, and we can start using more advanced of the features of the React use state without having to worry about the versions of React and everything and stuff, because it's already kind of bundled for us. So how do we do something with this? If we go ahead and put a button on the screen, button. Then we put our count inside that button. Okay, save. Now there's a button on the screen. We'll make that bigger. And inspect and see if there's something on my console. Okay, so now we need a function to be able to increment that button. We know what we did before was we put a on click, so on click onto that, and so it's nice to know, like, now because we're in TypeScript, we can kind of mouse over this. You can do this in JavaScript, you can do this in TypeScript, everything and stuff. But what this does is that this on click here. So if let's start typing it again because it'll help you. So you can say on and then click, it'll start helping you out. So the question mark means you don't have to provide it. It's optional. It could be undefined. It's not going to break if it doesn't have it. If you want to know what the fields are or what things you can set on it, you can mouse over this. You can right click and go to definition. It'll show you a bunch of gibberish that we'll figure out how to, what all that means later. But right now we know we can do an on click. So on click. Okay, so now we know that if you type in, if you click on that button, we need a function, and we wanted to call the set count, and we wanted to have our count. So does that work? Is that good syntax? It's underlined. It's saying it doesn't know what to do. Is it count plus 1? Okay, so it doesn't complain about that. So now what happens is when we click on this button, this method is being called. It's going to take our count, it's going to add 1, and it's going to set that count. So what it's going to do is our count that's being rendered, there's a function that will set the updated value, and maybe that'll change the value. So now count is being updated. Every time this state is updated, React knows to re-render this component. So when you click on it, we're going to add 1 to the count. We're going to call the set count. The set count function updates count then tells the component to re-render, and we're updating that component.
And since this is kind of sort of similar to HTML, right after that last greater than, you could just type in like text right there.
Yeah. So anything outside the curly braces and stuff. So current count. So it says current count. So that's actually inside the. So a lot of times the examples that you'll see is they'll put this outside of the deal, and we'll say current count is a count. And then they'll put this in the same line. And because it's JavaScript and not the HTML deals, you can, if there's a closing tag, you can actually just get rid of that one and then put a slash at the end of this guy. We can format this, and then when we save it, it'll say the button is here, and then it says current count. So then I guess we'll have to give it let's give it a label that says click E. Okay, click me, and then the count will then, it says current count equals 8. And then we can, if we wanted to, you can put this in a H1, just so you can have it on a new line and have it big and bold. And we can put it like this. Okay, so now it says click me and the current count, and it increments the count. Okay, so now what have we learned? So we can put it a static HTML, we can put it static CSS, we can link them all together, we can try and serve it through our editor, we can do all those things, or we can just run the script that the docs give you. It generates a project, and then we're off to the races by having all the serving and the packages and dependencies all worked out for you, and all we have to do is start editing our source code. Make sense?
Nice.
Okay. If we didn't really do much. I mean, other than we walked through some of the basics and everything and stuff. But maybe we can put this in a Git repo and then see how it progresses and stuff. But I mean, we're already at almost an hour and a half and stuff. So we probably should end this session. Until next time.